Hopefully we'll make it soon.
Ok, siamo live.
Okay, we're back live. Sorry about this interruption, but there have been some problems with the platform and with the streaming accordingly. So, let the second panel begin, the role of social media platforms and the interaction with states. So I would give the floor to Riccardo Silvestre, if he wants, or
No, please, Roberto.
Please,
Roberto,
Roberto,
before.
okay. Well, then the question.
Age before beauty, please.
Okay, well, the
be
kickoff
offended
question for Roberto is a strong question, and it's basically the following: can democracy survive the internet, Roberto?
Well, I don't think a single panel will answer this question. So to say, well, to try to answer your question, I think we can start from a model. Economists like model. So as an economist, I try to think in terms of model. And just yesterday, I saw this paper by Daron, who models the interaction of people on a social network and the interaction between the preferences of people and the preferences of social media platforms. So think of yourself as a person on a social media network, or Facebook, let's say, and you come across an article, a piece of news, you like it somehow, and you want to share it. You want other people to see it. This piece of news may be correct or may be fake, maybe a fake news. Discovering whether it is good news, it's a reliable news or an unreliable news, is costly. You need to do some research. You have to look for other sources in order to check whether this is a suitable news or not. So this takes time. It's a cost in economic terms. There is a cost. So you may decide not to incur in this cost. You may want to save this cost. You want to share this. But at the same time, you are worried that if this news is fake, some people may judge you, may not like this, and may not like you. So you are between these two forces. You want to share, but you don't want to incur in the cost in verifying the news. But at the same time, you don't want to be judged by your peers, by your friends, by your colleagues that may be connected with you. So what is the problem here? What is the key? There are two key issues here. The first one is the so-called homophily. By homophily, they mean the tendency towards the fact that other people like you like what you have shared. So people share the same beliefs that you have, and so like your news and maybe share it again. So this homophily may be high if many people think like you, or maybe low if you are in a network in which your beliefs differ from the beliefs of others. Then there is another subject in this game, that is the social media platform. What the social media platform wants to maximize? they assume that the social media platform wants to maximize interactions, want to maximize the sharing of content. So what happens here, given these features, these characteristics? If there is high homophily, if people in which you belong to the same network share your same beliefs, you will share the news that I was mentioning before. And this leads to the establishment of echo chambers. So left-wing people share left-wing news. They agree with themselves and they feel nice about sharing the same content. And the same happens with right-wing people that share right-wing news. Canon, for example, conspiracy theory, so on and so forth. So you have the establishment of these different groups that do not interact at all, these echo chambers, that are born out of, on the one hand, the preferences of people, and on the other hand, of the preferences of the platform itself. So this is the model first. What we can do in order to solve this problem? They consider three types of regulation. The first one is saying what is the article provenance. So what the characteristic of the journal, for example, of the outlet more in general, from which the news is taken. So, for example, Facebook does this. Facebook, there is something, the right side of the news, saying which outlet is this one, and if it's trustworthy or not trustworthy. This is a sort of self-regulation somehow that the platform can enforce. Does it work? In the model by Acemoglu and his co-author, it may work, it may not work. So it depends on how much trustable news are around. So if trustable news are the majority of the news, then this technique, this strategy to give the provenance of the news would drive fake news out of the market, let's say. But if fake news are the majority of the news, they in turn would drive serious news out of the market. So in their model, this doesn't look like as a viable solution. It may work, it may not work. Their favorite solution is the one that, for people like, I think, us, which want to defend pluralism, want to defend free sharing of information, is the most worrying, is censorship. So there is a third party who, the government, a government or several governments, or a supranational authority, that decides to censor some piece of news, some pieces of news. So if some of the content is censored, so not all the fake news are censored, just some of them are censored. These, in fact, they show that will change the behavior of the social media platform. So the social media platform would reduce the homophily and would behave more responsibly. So the social media platform would find itself in a situation in which some fake news have been taken out by this third party. So sharing this bad content becomes more costly, it reduces the authority of the social network, and so on and so forth. So they decide to mix people more, to reduce the echo chamber effect, and mix people with different beliefs more. If they mix more people with different beliefs, then people pay attention to what they share, and therefore they will share fewer fake news. So from my reading of this work, this is their favorite somehow solution. The third solution is what they call network regulation, where still it's decided outside from a third party, that again, the government or some kind of authority. And this authority puts a limit on the homophily in the code, in the algorithm of the platform. So there will be a certain level of homophily that cannot be surpassed. So if this is done, they claim, there will be some peer control. People monitor each other, and so they would not spread fake news. So when I go towards your question, I started from this, I took it from a long journey to get there. I think that echo chambers are a serious threat to democracy. And they may probably, maybe not kill democracy, but harm democracy. I would certainly fear this. What kind of intervention can we take? This is the problem. And this is why I spend so much time in devising what the solutions that they talk about. Of course, censorship is something that we do not accept as liberal thinkers, as people putting emphasis on responsibility, on accountability. This is not something that we may want to pursue. Yet, some limits should be placed somehow. So probably some kind of, I don't say this lightly, but some kind of control, external control on the algorithm is necessary. Okay, this opens serious problems. I recognize this. But again, if we were able to reduce homophily, we would be able to allow people to mix their opinions, their opinions. And so probably we can try to avoid the birth of these groups that do not talk to each other, that hate each other, actually, and don't want to compromise. Democracy is about compromise. It's about having differences, political differences, economic differences, differences on many aspects of life, but yet finding some kind of common ground that allows the society to go on and to be governed in a way that is respectful for the liberties of people. So I think I have not answered you, but I hope.
I think it's impossible to answer this question.
Yes.
So, yeah.
But I hope I gave you and all our audience an idea of what are the forces here.
So basically, interacting with states, there should be some form of control, also from the states, or just from external actors, stakeholders. From where should the control come from? What do you think? It's just
in principle, yes. The problem is to find the right balance, which is per se a very difficult issue. You may easily go beyond what are the necessary powers and abuse these powers. And again, the first liberal thinkers were very much afraid of establishing freedom from something, so from the excess, from the abuse of the government in general. So we should be aware of the possibility that some of these regulations may go beyond. But on the other hand, we should also think about the abuse that can be done by private parties too. And so the self-regulation, I think that could be something that in which Stefano could say something.
Yeah, please. Actually, feel free to add something if you want, Stefano, on this, just to make a debate.
Yeah. It's I mean, of course, the questions that Roberto illustrated are the I mean. Is the debate now all over the world? I mean, it was now. I mean, it's there is a discussion ongoing on this for the DSA that was before referred to by Julia, the Digital Services Act. A few days ago, the rapporteur in the European Parliament proposed some amendments to the DSA, and a couple of amendments are really on these issues. At least a couple, even more than a couple, but I mean, a couple impressed me quite a lot because I think it overshot. I mean, they are more than I think it would be acceptable probably. The first one that was called immediately by the media as the Trump amendment says that basically before suspending a site of public interest, including politicians' accounts, a social media platform, an online platform, but of course we are speaking of social media platform basically, needs to have a judicial, ask to a judicial authority the permission to do that. I think, I mean, it's quite an intrusion. The text, the original text of the DSA didn't have this clause. And the second thing that is really in what Roberto said is about algorithms and especially trying to have a sort of neutral recommender systems, not based on profiling, basically, as the default solution. In the sense that if you don't choose explicitly a recommender system based on your profiling, you have an ordinary, a standard recommender system, so a standard algorithm, basically. I think, I mean, both, but these are two examples, two important examples of between, I mean, the many amendments that were proposed and to the DSA. But I think there are several risks. A couple of, I mean, I'm quoting a couple of risks that I think you have to assess before going in this direction, provided that, of course, some regulation, I don't think that self-regulation in itself is a solution. I think, I mean, you should have something more, finding a balance, and that is the, the difficult task, actually. But you have, I mean, two problems with an heavy regulation. I mean, many people, many experts talk of public utility, a sort of public utility regulation, but social media and online platforms in general are not like cable wires or railway tracks or so on. And here you have two problems. One with innovation, and so a more kind of economic problem, and also a political problem. The first one, innovation, of course, a kind of public utility regulation. Julia, I think, was telling something on this, of course, on Zoom issues that are, of course, different, but it means standardization, basically. And standardization, of course, is a limit to innovation. And you have, I mean, think of TikTok, for example. I'm not a big fan of social media in general. I mean, on a couple of them, but then TikTok basically had a huge success. Actually, it's a counter story to the idea that you have a mature market, almost monopolized, or so on. It had a huge success thanks to an algorithm that is was successful. Then, of course, you can like it or not like it from an external point of view, but in terms of popularity, it allowed TikTok to skyrocket its and so basically if there is an external power that decides on the algorithm, I see some important limitation to the fact that
because somehow the algorithm is the product.
Yeah,
So
that is the problem.
You are
that is the
regulating the product.
Yeah,
in a very deep way.
Yeah.
So you can regulate. Sorry, if I. You regulate. The amount of chemicals that are in goods that you use, for example, which is somehow regulating your products. But here you regulate somehow more deeply. So this is a big thing. I think we have to consider that this is a very big thing, which can, as you said, can hinder innovation. So we should be very careful.
And also competition at the end, because you are crystallized. You risk to freeze. The market contestability, while you need, of course, to allow new entrants. TikTok was the case that I quoted. I am not on TikTok, but you need to allow new entrants to enter into the market, and algorithms is the ground of competition. And so this is the first issue about innovation and sort of economic issue. Then there is a political issue that I think is totally underestimated at the moment, and of course it's and that is clear in the Trump amendment, because in the ideal world, you can tolerate that a judicial authority decides what accounts should be suspended or not. But as a liberal-minded person, thinking of judicial systems all over Europe, starting from Italy, but there are, of course, many other cases outside Italy, and it's, of course, a general issue. This kind of intrusion can have, apart from a direct effect on the political account that is suspended or not suspended, but in general has the risk of politicizing social media more than they are already. This is a trend that I fear, and is a trend that, of course, is necessary to a certain level, but if you go over that level, I think it could create other kinds of problems to democracy that you have to take into consideration. I mean, you cannot think that you are in a real world where, I mean, yeah, there is a benevolent kind of government that, yeah, decides, I mean, for, I mean, maximizes social welfare, is very fair, is very, and has a sort of omniscient view of the world. The reality is different, and the reality is that if you politicize social media, you have a mess, in my opinion. I mean, there is a very strong risk that it would be a mess. So you have, I think, two strong arguments against over-regulation. And yeah, the challenge is trying to find a sort of balance between the fact that, I mean, you need to have some regulation, of course, because these are very powerful instruments, but you have to stop at a certain level.
I will add something, but I think that Riccardo needs to step in and.
No, I would. Yeah, I would like to hear also Riccardo's thoughts on this. For instance, about what do you think about this democracy and the internet? Let's say so. Is overregulation a solution? Is there a balance to be found? The politicization of social media.
Yeah, I went in a slightly different direction, more geopolitical, like Stefano was mentioning. But before that, it's a pleasure to be again with Roberto. We had a wonderful podcast in Rome, still one of my favorite podcasts, and also very good to share the panel with Stefano. Before I go into my contribution, there's 2 points that I really want to make quickly. One has to do with what Roberto was saying about the homophily. And a Pew Research show in the United States, they run a poll with 4,500 respondents, and it was very interesting that 17% of the respondents say that they changed a political opinion because they saw something that was outside their echo chamber. So there's hope on that one. And the second point that I want to make really quickly, also what Roberto and Stefano was saying about the algorithms. It's funny that we normally tend to see, and Roberto, you say that we think of the algorithm as the product. But the thing goes around because the product sees the user, sorry, the algorithm sees the user as the product. So a couple of points for us to think about it. Well, the thing about coming after these two gentlemen is that they already said half of what I wanted to say, but still, I have some very quick points, and I made a slideshow presentation that I hope you're seeing right now. Please tell me that you're seeing it.
We are, yep.
Yes, wonderful.
Yes.
So when the Luigi Einaudi Fondazione asked me to participate, I was very, 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 very interested and very happy because I've been studying this for the last 2 years, and democracy will not survive the internet as the internet is right now. I'm 100% a believer on that. We need to change the internet, and actually there's some changes. And for example, Stefano was mentioning the Digital Services Act. It's one of the first tries after the commerce regulation. So very quickly, so when we think about governance, we think about, and this is James Madison in the Federalist Papers, which is have a group of people. Those people are legitimate. They are chosen to interpret whatever information you have, and then have the wisdom to see what is the best for their country. Now, the thing is now, and I pick up this example, but there's many more. When a French court ruled that Yahoo would have to withdraw access from a website that sold Nazi memorabilia, Nazi relics, anywhere in the world, at the time, the vice president of Yahoo, she asked, okay, which law should we follow? Because there are many countries and many laws, but there's just one internet. So when we think about our country and we're thinking about, okay, how do we protect our democracy? Then we have to think that this extends to all kinds of influence that come from abroad our country that before they didn't exist. So for example, and this I know very well about the people that want to have this kind of independence of nation states and have this kind of internet that it's above all these concepts of organizations, countries, institutions. So what happens is that we have digital platforms that are mostly like countries, and countries that are becoming mostly digital platforms. So there's this problem that we're losing track of things. It's getting too, into this gray area where sometimes we don't know what we're dealing with. And I brought two examples in here. Like, for example, this is an article from Vox by Henry Farrell and Margaret Levy and Tim O'Reilly, where they make the case that Facebook, for example, it's a nation state. And I added, it's like a constitutional monarchy. They have the king, then they have the government, and then they have diplomats. Now Facebook has a Supreme Court. They have their own civil society, which they call the community. They have their own laws, which is terms and services. And this is This was personal communication from the Corporate Europe Observatory in Brussels, that they got the emails that were exchanged between Facebook and the European Commission. And I think this is really, really revealing. Facebook was arguing before the European Commission that they should not be regulated, because there are two types of law for companies like Facebook or Google or Reddit or Twitter, which is their law, which they want to apply on their nation state. And then there's the public law. And that is a problem with the legislators, but they'll legislate in their home nations. They will not legislate on the internet. So this is my last couple of emails. And like Stefano was saying, there's steps that we're trying to take. For example, the Digital Services Act, but then there's a problem of nations and internet. So for example, if you have a Digital Services Act, but then we have a law in Germany, a law in Austria, and then Hungary and Poland now want to have this new law that says, oh, people cannot be deplatformed, like happened with Donald Trump with Twitter. So they want Twitter to kick Orban out of the platform. Or for example, and Stefano, you're mentioning the French situation. For example, there's the ley Avia that it was ruled unconstitutional, but now they want to consolidate the principles of republic, which is the French law for trust in digital economy, so that they will try to make a bunch of internal rules that they will, I don't know if they will fit with the Digital Services Act and all the others. So this is my last slide, because then I had some solutions, but Roberto and Stefano already mentioned a couple of them, but I'll mention one that you guys didn't. So this is the problems that democracy have with internet, with the digital realm, which is political micro-targeting, political ads, architecture, volume and volatility. I live, and I'm speaking against myself, I live on Twitter. I spend 8 hours on Twitter. And major topics that 10 years ago would be a topic that would be talked for a week, now is talked for a day and then disappears, because there's always new things coming. Algorithm, content, and function, you gentlemen already mentioned that, and then misinformation and disinformation. And this is the example that I wanted to give, which is, for example, you all follow what happened with the vaccines. The vaccines that were being authorized by the European Commission to be administered in Europe. All of a sudden, we had all kind of misinformation coming from Russia, coming from China, that, oh, those vaccines, they have all kinds of problems. And this was in digital platforms also. Actually, influencers were hired by Russian agencies to spread misinformation in Europe. But we are working, European Union have all this kind of mechanisms Action Plan Against Disinformation, European Democracy Action Plan, we have cybersecurity, and then we have the European Union Agency for Networks and Information Security. It's called ENISA, that is part of EES, which is our external services, where, for example, eStratcom, that tries to filter misinformation coming from Russia, those people are working on the field. So I'm positive, meaning that we're making baby steps, but still very, very worried because, and I think Roberto and Stefano also mentioned this, which is this thing is very powerful, has a lot of economic incentives, has a lot of political incentives, has also a lot of social incentives. Because just the other day, I was also in a webinar like this, and we were discussing with our friends from VVD in the Netherlands, and we were discussing, well, what is the best way to regulate digital platforms? And some of our liberal brethren was saying, well, the thing is, we need to have a democratic process. We need to have, people participating. And you gentlemen know, as I know, and this is my last message, how much people like easiness, how much people like things to be quick and functional. So to say to someone, well, now we have to find a committee and we have to vote and we have to see what's in the algorithm for the algorithm so that it does not discriminate people and the algorithm promotes individual freedoms. This process, we have to be aware that this process is not only heavy, but we may not find a consensus because some liberals want one thing, some liberals want another thing. And then there are some liberals that say, I just want the machine to work. So that's my 5 cents, like our American friends say, and looking forward to continue this conversation.
Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you so much. Actually, I have just a question following your slides. Well, you talked about misinformation and disinformation, and I want to catch up on this about information. How much is the population informed and aware of what's actually going on? Like, is the population even familiar about some concept like cyber threats, cyber attacks, privacy, surveillance, all these concepts? Is there something that can be done to raise awareness also on this?
That's a great question, Gianmarco, and Roberto and Stefano was mentioning that, which is
for everyone. Question for everyone, of course.
I'll be 30 seconds.
Yeah. Starting with you. No, please take your time. It's interesting. I want to know your idea on this because you really touched a lot of topics in this regard.
For example, Roberto and Stefano was mentioning the fact that there's so much money involved in now what is called surveillance capitalism, which is using our data because we are the product for the digital platforms. The more time we talk about, the more time we're in platforms talking about politics and arguing about politics, the more money they make and the more information they get from us. Now, answering your question in particular, that is the work that the Luigi Einaudi Fondazione has to do, MLS has to do, the European Commission, everyone that is interested in saving democracy from the internet. Because you're absolutely right, Gianmarco. People are worried about their day-to-day living. They want to pay their bills. They want to take their kids to school. They want to stay at home and watch, Italian soccer on television, Italia, Portugal, maybe for the title of the world of the European Cup. It doesn't matter. It matters that for people have to have a constant stream of information to fight the misinformation and disinformation. And in that particular aspect, I do think that the European Commission is going in a good direction, the European Union, the European Parliament. But there's more to be done, of course, because the forces that are against us, they are so strong, they have so much money, they're so malintent. There are people in St. Petersburg in Russia right now working 24 hours per day to see how they can mess with democracy in the European Union. How can pump, all kind of crap into our system so that we can fight amongst us. And you have a great point, which is constant information, constant education, not in a patronizing way, of course, but in a way that it's productive.
Good answer. Thank you for this so much. And yeah, so Roberto, Stefano, please, what do you think on this? If you have any ideas or.
No, I think we have explored the basic issues and the basic problems that regulation faces here. And I think what I was referring before, I think that here we are dealing with companies that work in a very different ways from the companies we are used to. So for example, we were discussing before with some people in the audience, saying that there was an article saying that we are dealing with these companies the same way we dealt with the Seven Sisters, so the big oil companies in the 60s, in the 70s, more that at some point were very strong, very powerful, and so basically states were ineffective. Some states were ineffective in dealing with them, and I think there is a big difference with respect to oil companies in the 70s. When you are drilling oil, you have costs, and you have variable costs, and you have positive marginal costs, if I think as an economy. So extracting a further barrel of oil from a drill that is not very rich, it's a cost. Adding a consumer, adding a person on the social network basically has no cost. A person, I mean, there are costs, of course, in establishing a social network, in amassing the data, in having sources for the use of social network. But adding a new person, adding a new consumer, adding a marginal consumer has no cost. So these changes, if I think in terms of industrial economics, the state of the play. So you have a huge incentive to grow and grow. And basically there are no diseconomies in this growth. Whereas a company that drills oil has diseconomies at some point. So you have good oil fields in Saudi Arabia, you have very difficult oil fields in the Caspian Sea, for example, where drilling is very expensive. Saudi Arabia drilling has been very, very cheap for decades. So this changes the dynamics, I think, in terms of the way in which we need to think of the economics of these companies. And so ownership, the ownership of several social networks within a single company is justified. Or does it entail more costs in terms of excess power? On the one hand, I mean, the example that Stefano did before, so TikTok sprang from nowhere and became extremely popular. A few months ago, we were talking about Clubhouse, I think. There was this hype about
There was
Clubhouse.
this Clubhouse that just popped out of the blue, and yeah.
It went nowhere. I think now I don't, not really every second on dealing with this, but I think that it somehow disappeared, or at least there is a much less hype than there was 3 months ago, for probably. So maybe in the long run, contestability of the markets is the only medicine. But in the short run, can we wait for Clubhouse, for another TikTok, or another to bring contestability into the market? In a market in which there is a monopoly is there, because because we have zero marginal cost. So monopolization is something very deeply inbuilt in this market for the way in which they work. So again, I'm not offering a solution, but I think we need to talk in terms of their economics, the way in which they make decisions. And we need to think in terms of reducing somehow the power they have, some sort of the power that they have, without harming innovation. Finding a balance between these two objectives is not, again, it's not easy as it wasn't in the discussion we had before. But I think if we do not deal with the economics behind, we will end up with poor understanding of the issues here.
Thank you. Yeah.
Stefan is much more industrial economist than me.
No, no, but yeah, of course, network effects are fundamental in this. But you have network effects on the supply side, but also, of course, on the demand side, and this is why I think it's not possible to, break these companies as Standard Oil at the beginning of the 20th century was broke. In the seven sisters in oil. And this is the first, in my opinion, the first difference. The second difference is innovation, because oil, has some innovation. The big innovation, of course, was at the end of 19th century. Basically, afterwards, it was a question of scale, but more or less, the techniques stay quite similar. Here you have a sector that is very innovative, and you want, and I think the competition is not a traditional competition where you have someone that is entering into a market and is offering the same thing, the same services at a lower prices, because price is zero. So, and so the contestability in the market, towards Facebook, let's call, is not represented by another Facebook or breaking Facebook, but from other platforms that are entering, offering something different. Of course, we don't know if it's going to happen or not. TikTok is even if, of course, it's not really comparable to Facebook. Is of course, it's still smaller, and it's something. It's stronger in at least for our discourse. Is not particularly political platform. But I think I totally agree with Roberto. You have to think of the economics underlying this sector, and you need to find solutions that are compatible with the economics behind it, because otherwise you are not finding viable solutions, basically. And so I think this is a question, and it's true that of course we are worried by the power of private platforms, but even there you have to balance between the power of private. Again, it's not comparable. Public and private powers. We need to have a strong power entrusted to the state and so on. But again, it should be. like setting the rules, but not that intrusive and not altering, in my opinion, um, business models, and but also stifling innovation, but also, as I said before, politicizing the social networks. So it has to be a sort of nudging more than heavy regulation. I mean, that is my opinion.
Yeah, you're understanding the nudging ideology, actually. Riccardo, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, the conversation is fascinating. I'm so sorry that I'm not more versed in economics to be able to keep up, but I would like to add again 2 points very quickly to what Roberto was saying, and now Stefano was mentioning about business models. I've seen many initiatives to try to punish Facebook and try to punish Twitter. Campaigns for people to stop being on Facebook, to hurt them economically. It doesn't function. There's no kind of momentum that could really make them change their philosophy of what is the business model they have, what are they offering, and then the money they are making on the back end. So I'm really worried about that. And then maybe if I can add a question, Gianmarco, this is the podcast host of me coming out, but do you gentlemen think that antitrust laws would be one option? For example, Verstager, she's very resistant to go to that route and start breaking companies in little pieces. But for example, the Americans are talking about that almost every single day. It goes from all the way to the government to the attorney generals in the 50 states from the United States. So is antitrust laws the only option we have? Because I don't see any other.
Who wants to take the word first?
Stefano? I can go. No, I don't see antitrust laws as a solution. As I said before, I mean, it's of course could be the solution for so-called killer acquisitions. So for example, I don't know. I mean, if I were a competition authority that decided over Facebook, Instagram, I mean, the acquisition by Facebook of Instagram, I'm not sure that even if, of course, now we are seeing at Instagram as a huge social media. At the time, I think it was paid 1 billion or 2 billion. That is nothing. The current prices, basically, it's really very very cheap buy, but of course, I mean, it poses some problems, as Roberto was saying. You have several. You don't have many social media. The fact that you have more than one major social media entrusted to the same ownership, it's something that. But apart from that, I don't see breaking single social platforms. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, but especially because you are on a social platform, because I see especially the demand side. Of course, there is also the supply side, but because your friends are on or interesting people are, even if you don't know them personally, are on the social platform. So of course, it's
Stefano and I are on the same because we are not. We're on the same platform, and antitrust authority decided that I should be in platform A, and Stefano should be in platform B, so we cannot talk anymore. Maybe I will go to platform B, or otherwise he comes to platform A. So the problem will be still there, because there will be an influx of people from A to B or from B to A, and again, given the fact that marginal costs are zero, you rebuild the same huge network. So yes, it's not a solution.
just to finish.
No, sorry.
No. Just to finish because I want. I think the solution is a regulation solution. I think Europe is going in the right direction. If not, I have some fear of over regulation, but I think regulation is the right solution more than antitrust. I'm pretty sure about it. But of course, we can elaborate further on this.
Riccardo, I saw a hand raised. Is that correct, or?
Just very quickly, I wanted to react what Roberto was saying. I'm not sure that it won't work having platform A and platform B, because what do you think, what we should be thinking when we think about this scenario is it's what kind of architecture, what kind of service are these platforms offering? So for example, if you are on platform A and I'm on platform B, and as you were saying, well, sooner or later we'll be on all the same platforms and so on and so forth. If your platform doesn't have political ads, so if I go there and I'm not being bombarded with, ads from, Lega Nord, I may be interested more in your platform than you'll be interested in my platform, because you're coming to my platform and there's all kind of junk and crap flowing in your direction. So I think the jury is still out, like we normally say in English, on that one in particular. And there are other platforms that have been surfacing, and they're trying to give that kind of other environment for people to talk about politics.
I'm not sure what will happen. But it could be that we reproduce echo chambers in different platforms.
That's a different.
Could be a bad, unintended outcome, a bad unintended outcome, which I would not like it. I'm sure. I can guarantee. But could be the unintended outcome of these. And then another problem is, should a third party say this is a platform for politics and this is a platform for cats, which I like. I have two. So I like politics and I like cats. So.
But what you said is already something that is, you have some social networks in the US that Parler, for example, that is already, a sort of conservative social media. And I don't think that is the solution. I think it makes things worse than and it's really not the solution. I think that as Riccardo was saying before, of course, if you are on a big platform, you can.
You also like cats, okay? Fair enough. We all love cats and politics, I think. I don't know, Stefano. Stefano, do you have cats?
No,
you don't have cats.
But I'm sorry. But
Riccardo, we can make a social network against
on cats.
Stefano.
Yeah, against mine. So I think even in political terms, apart from business models, I don't see a solution in dividing people by platform, because you are on a particularly political platform, or there is a platform on politics and a platform on something else. I don't see real benefits on that.
Okay, unfortunately, we are running a little bit out of time. We were a bit late because of this streaming issue that we had, and so sorry everyone for being late on the schedule. That was supposed to be 7 p.m. But so is there any other observation, question? Riccardo, Stefano? Okay.
Well, I just want to thank the opportunity, and it's great to share the panel with these two very fine gentlemen, and also with you, Gianmarco. Great work with the moderation, and let's keep this conversation going. We saw in this last 3 minutes that we have different opinions, which is also very positive, and we're all liberal-minded, so finding solutions for those kinds of problems. And next time, let's try not to make this on Zoom. Julie is not here with us anymore, so good thing that she's not listening to this, but let's get out of Zoom and let's be together, because it's a different dynamic. And me being in Lisbon, which I can't complain, but you know, it'll be also very good to be with you gentlemen in the same room, that's for sure.
Hopefully.
It would be nice to come to Lisbon, of course.
With cats.
Maybe not.
Hopefully, Riccardo, hopefully, really. And well, thank you for your brilliant participation. I really enjoyed the quality and the substance of the speech, which is the most important thing, as usual. And so thank you, Riccardo. Thank you, Stefano, for your interventions, for being here. It was nice to, you know, make this part of the hybrid event in person. So kind of back to 2019, where we could make events in person. Well, thank you everyone also for attending the roundtable. Once again, I would like to recall that this discussion was organized by the European Liberal Forum with the support of the Fondazione Luigi Einaudi, co-funded by the European Parliament, that is not responsible for the content of the program or for any use that be made of it. These views do not necessarily reflect those of the European Parliament and of the European Liberal Forum. So in conclusion, thank you, and hopefully we'll continue this discussion later on, as you said, Riccardo. Thank you for joining. Thank you, everyone from home.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.